I'm serious. We talked about Mark Schaefer last week, and he's absolutely one of my top 10 followers.
You can get him on.
Well, I'm gonna leverage you and say, hey, Andy Crestodina said I should talk to you. And that's how it works, which is you didn't know me at all. I went to see you speak. I took some photos of you. I made them available to you. I kind of got on your radar there maybe a little bit. You came up here.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
You came up here to speak again. We talked a little bit more. I asked you to be on the podcast, yada, yada, ding dong. Mm-hmm. That's the way it works.
That's how relationships, friendships grow. Yeah. Now I'd do anything. I mean, tell me how to help. Let's make more stuff together. And this show is maybe just the beginning of who knows what else.
All right. So last week we talked about Mark Schaefer and what a giver he's giving in books like Marketing Rebellion, which I believe just came out. Fantastic book, fantastic guy. And what impressed me about his keynote at Social Media Marketing World is that a whole lot of people would have taken that IP, hid it away behind a paywall, and then forced you to pay significant dollars for what I consider to be brilliant insight. And yet there he was giving it out freely. That was really, really impressive to me. But he's a teacher, right? That's what he does.
He's a teacher. I don't know that, I can't say for sure if he gates content on his website. I will tell you this, he started one of the early social media conferences, which was around long before Social Media Marketing World. I can't remember what city he did it in. It was like Knoxville or Nashville. But Social Slam, it was only like $60, and he had scholarships. If you couldn't pay $60, he was going to give you a ticket or find a way to get you there. That's a kind-hearted, generous man, like to the core. Just meet him anywhere, Here's a Mark Schaefer story. I'm interacting online with a guy in Pakistan who's named Saad, Twitter handle, The Invincible Saad. Saad says he likes my articles and his favorites are by Mark Schaefer. I didn't know Mark at the time. I looked up Mark and here's this incredible insight. So not long after that, I'm at Content Marketing World, one of the very first, I think the second ever Content Marketing World. And I see Mark. I'm like, Mark, you and I both know this guy in Pakistan. His name is Saad. He's like, oh, Saad's a good friend of mine. Let's take a picture and send it to Saad. Years later, last year, Saad was trying to come to Social Media Marketing World. I saw Mark at Social Media Marketing World. He's like, yeah, Saad couldn't make it. He's having problems with his relationships, something going on with his girlfriend. And, we talked about it. I'm like, okay, this man is giving relationship advice to a dude in Pakistan that they only know each other from online. It's not even, it goes beyond marketing. It goes beyond, it's friendship. He has he's like a counselor. He's a friend. He provides guidance on any level to anyone he can in anywhere in the world. It's remarkable the impact he has made, the people he's brought together. Social Slam, a lot of famous keynotes. I won't list them. First presentation they ever gave was at his conference, Social Slam, like early days, like 2007 or something. It's amazing the impact he's made.
I like to tell people that one of the reasons to work on your personal brand, and again, I'm not talking about creating some flashy packaging. I'm just saying, tell the story of you through the way you post, the things you recommend, who you associate with, the flock you fly with. And I'll often say, guess what? The flock you fly with may be flying at a higher altitude than you currently are. But you can step up your game. You step up your altitude over time, one step at a time. And legitimately, it's not, some growth hackers will, of course, show you all the great ways to make these relationships happen within 30 days. Mm-hmm. I say garbage, absolute garbage to that, because it's not authentic, it's not sustainable, and it's certainly not scalable. It's like that old saying about telling the truth. If you tell the truth, you never have to remember what you said because you aren't lying and you're telling the truth, and the truth is immutable. It doesn't change. Well, tell the truth about yourself, the true story, the completely you, completely true story of your personal brand. And the way you do it, it's exemplified by what you just said about Mark, which is the dude is legit because he's always that way. He's that way to a guy in Pakistan who maybe he might sell a book to, but he's certainly not going to sell a consulting contract for thousands of dollars. In fact, it might actually cost you money because from what you said, he might be buying a plane ticket for Saad to come over and participate in one of these events someday.
I wouldn't be surprised if I got the link to the crowdfunding page for our Saad's plane ticket, I'd know right away who made that. That would have been Mark Schaefer.
Yeah. Wow. And that, my friends, is the basis of a personal brand. It's not some flashy logo. It's not some cool color palette. It's not some really snappy web design or anything like that. It's who you are, what you do, and how you do it every single day, every single engagement, every single opportunity you have to engage with people. One of the reasons that I'm so effusive whenever I can help promote stuff you're doing in my neck of the woods is that you are so good. And I'm not saying this to make you blush or shine you on or anything like that. I'm just telling the truth, which is there are people who are hucksters who, warm over the same conventional wisdom and serve it up and with maybe a new framing and okay, that's fine. But then there are other people that are like, no, this is valuable stuff. So again, how can I show people that I have good taste, I have good wisdom, I have an understanding of what the difference between meh and marvelous is? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I got to prove that. And how do I prove that?
The way you put that. Fly with that flock. Yeah.
Yeah. And what happens is when you fly with that flock, you don't know how fast things can happen. I know that Ann Handley is an acquaintance of yours, and she's barely an acquaintance of mine, other than that when Spencer X. Smith and I were writing our book, Ratoma, the ROI of Social Media Top of Mind, I was at about 90% done with the book, editing it, designing it, and all that stuff. And I thought to myself, this is about the time a publisher would send out a book for blurbs. And so I sent it out to 5 people total. 3 who were not flying at a terribly high height were like, well, no, I'm going to have to read the whole thing before I get back to you. And I'm like, okay, that's reasonable. Fine. But of course, they never got back to me. But then I sent it to 2 other people who are flying at a significantly higher altitude than me. One was Ann Handley. The other is Scott Galloway, the Stern School of Business marketing professor who's bald. He's on Pivot with Kara Swisher. He's hilarious, brilliant, and everything else. And guess who the 2 people who wrote a blurb for the book were? The people who are legitimately, authentically quality people who are like, hey, this is actually pretty good. Here's what I'd like you to use if you'd like to use it. So the 2 blurbs are on the book are the 2 of the highest flying eagles I could find. And it was a shot in the dark, but that's what social media allows you to do now.
Yeah, you did the right thing. I mean, you stuck your neck out, you took a chance, you reached out. That puts you in the top 5% right there, because most people wouldn't do that. And I don't know, it may be surprising in a way. I'm as time goes on, I become less surprised when you get the response back from the big influencer. Because 2 reasons. One, they are influential because they're generous. So, they're more likely to help in certain ways anyway. And 2, they're professionals who budget part of their time to contributing to other people's work. So a typical article for me includes contributor quotes from other experts. I'm trying to find an expert to make my article better. So I'm writing an article. I did this. This happened to me 2 days ago. I'm writing an article about research, influencer research or something. I send a contributor quote request to 3 different people, 2 of which are pretty big names, like 50,000, 100,000 followers across social networks. And one of them was an expert, but relatively unknown. The bigger names were the fastest to get back to me because it's part of their profession. It's something that they do. Some of them even have time budgeted for these things. I did an interview of Marcus Sheridan, you may know.
Yeah.
Marcus has a day a month where he does podcast interviews. So if you reach out to him like, oh, geez, I hope Marcus would, agree to be interviewed with, this is I'm hoping that he sets aside time for it. It's part of his routine. So the contributors to this post that I'm going to be publishing, I got a faster response from the busier, more influential, more famous, not that they're celebrities or anything, but they were quick to respond with thoughtful, detailed answers, more than I expected them to give. The other person I'm still waiting to hear back from.
Yeah. Well, actually, I've thought about this a lot. And because I'm a writer, I always try to make things as pithy as possible. The dynamic you're talking about, I like to say, to be big, serve small. And those people are serving, I'm not saying you're small or anything, but you're not asking for a big thing. You're saying, give me a quote, give me a paragraph, give me, for all I care, show me a paragraph out of your book and we'll credit it from coming from your book. So it can be a back scratch for you if you need it to be. I would love it to be original, a new thought, because there is value. The value I want to bring to my readers is new thinking, not necessarily regurgitated thinking. But most of the people who are big get that, which is, I'm not going to pull a quote from my book I wrote 2 years ago. I'm going to tell you what I'm thinking about this past week.
Right. Yeah. And as far as marketing tactics go, it's one of my all-time favorites. As a rule, I suggest that people don't create content without getting a voice of at least one other person in there. Single point of view content has a big disadvantage today. A journalist wouldn't write an article without a source. Marketers shouldn't write articles without a contributor quote. What we're doing right now is an example of collaborative content with better quality, better reach than it would have had otherwise had we just either of us tried to do this alone, obviously.
Well, and I was paying attention the last time you were up here teaching, and you made a very compelling case for what you just said, which is if you're doing a blog post, find a way to get at least one, if not more, small contributors to it. And again, it could be, hey, I'm talking about XYZ. What's your take on XYZ? Someone sends you a little 2-sentence thing. You plug it in, you give them credit, you link to their website. Boom. You've got a goodwill connection there that Google certainly loves to bless.
Yeah.
You do that with 5 people and you've just exponentially grown your potential audience for the blog read. And, again, I'm just reiterating what you taught us during your talk. It's the way that you build authority in the eyes of the most important arbiter in the world, which is the Google.
Yeah, your content got better. You may have learned from those quotes. It's a great day when you learn by reading your own blog. Better social reach because they're invested in the content. They're very likely to share. It would be weird if they didn't. And yeah, the authority of and for the reader, think about what is it called? The halo effect, the cognitive bias where I trust Mark, therefore I trust DP because Mark is in DP's content. So you end up with creating positive sentiment around your personal brand by, the flock you fly with. I'm going to keep saying that. It's a perfect, that's the, it leverages not that I'm trying to be sneaky about it, but it does leverage a cognitive bias that all people have. It's the same as an endorsement or a review or a referral. It's at top of mind. It's the association. It's the word of mouth. So yeah, contributor quotes. It's a zero cost, fast way to hit every note. Very valuable.
This episode of the Nonfiction Brand Podcast is brought to you by Nonfiction Brandversity. It's a free Facebook group dedicated to the art and craft of personal branding, and we'd like to invite you. Just search Nonfiction Brandversity on Facebook and ask to join. You're in, guaranteed. I can't wait to see you on campus.
Well, I wanted to talk to you about Andy Crestodina, the brand. Now, you strike me as a person who probably never thinks about Andy Crestodina, the brand. But you clearly have a brand for anyone who's paying attention. And the definition of brand I'm going to use for this conversation is the one that Tom Peters posited in the 1998 article in Wired magazine, where the title cover of the page was "A Brand Called You," or "The Brand Called You" was the cover image of this 1998 Wired magazine cover. Tom Peters, the brilliant business consultant, big thinker. When you think of thought leadership, you should look up and you'll see his picture in the dictionary. And then if you go to look at the Wikipedia definition of personal brand, it talks about Tom Peters and how he changed the conversation away from self-awareness to self-packaging, where self-help books have been about self-awareness and, becoming your best self. Personal branding was about self-packaging, really understanding who you are so that you can communicate it more clearly to others. So I don't think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think you've wasted any gray matter thinking about the packaging that the Andy Crestodina doll comes in, because no, you just do it. You just be the Andy. The fact that your name is Andy is perfect because Andy is such a friendly name. It's probably the most friendly male name this side of Chipper. So Andy.
I never loved it. It's I don't. It's kind of a. We're given our names. I never tried to adapt it. DP though, that's a move. That's a decision.
Yeah, well, it was kind of forced on me. Long story short, I was going to work at an agency in Chicago, and I got a phone call, and they said, "What do you want on your business card?" I said, "How about my name, David?" And they go, "You're going into a creative group with four other Davids, and they all have nicknames. So if you want to pick one before they give you one, it might be a good idea." So I had been going by David Paul occasionally, so I just went with DP, and it stuck. And it became a professional moniker. It's maybe affectation a little bit, but it's also helpful in that branding is about differentiation. DP, if you say, "Hey, I was just talking to DP," most people who would know both of us would go, "Oh, I know exactly who you're talking about," as opposed to, "I was talking to David," and you're like, "Which David?" That's part of personal branding.
It flows. It rhymes. Yeah, DP. It's easy to say. It's easy to remember when you see it. The shape of the letters. It worked. It feels like a creative. The whole thing. But Andy, it's kind of a whiny name. I never loved it. And no, I probably not much more than you did through that thought exercise. I didn't think about any packaging for. But I like what happened in that moment for you. You made a choice. They like, do it now before someone does it for you.
Yeah, well, and the funny thing is, later on in my career, I tried to go back to David, but all the people who knew me professionally knew me as DP, and they literally could not change.
Yeah.
Because I guess it fits. I don't know. But for those of you who thought it was an affectation, you're wrong, but probably a little right at the same time. But you have been able to take your career as a website business owner and turn it into a pretty meaningful influencer career, speaking at a lot of conferences throughout the United States, throughout North America. Have you had some overseas as well?
I do. I try to say yes to everything. And my default answer is just yes. I do lots of unpaid speaking. I can't do everything. I have a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old. And if it's international, I ask my wife if she wants to go to that place. I don't usually go unless I can bring, it's because that was going to take me 4 days, I'm speaking at AtomicCon next year, which is Andrew and Pete. I speak in Barcelona every year as part of a class at school, but I do about as much travel as I want to, but it's like 100 presentations a year for sure.
Wow.
It's a lot. Yeah. And because if you say yes to all of them, like the little schools, small groups, the events we do in our office, we do a monthly event. We've done it for 9 years. There's just a lot of people who are looking for advice and help, and like incubators and accelerators and companies, internal training meetings. It makes all the difference. You know what I compare it to? I was like a fancy wedding, and we went on a hot air balloon ride. Ever done that before?
No.
The hot air balloon?
No.
It's kind of loud. It's different than I thought. Like the basket's pretty small, and the flamethrower is pretty loud. It's like peaceful in a way, but also like your head's right next to this giant fireball. It's also kind of intense in a way. But those people are pilots. A hot air balloon captain is a pilot, and they need to get hours. Pilots have to have a certain number of hours to stay a pilot. But hot air balloon pilots only get like 1 hour at a time. So the problem with being a speaker is you don't have that many opportunities to get up in the air, right? To get on the stage and to practice and present. So it's helped me by saying yes to everything to get to do it enough that I can iterate and improve. So when I do come to Madison, because you guys are a tough audience, a smart audience, like experts, a lot of you guys are pros. I can't, so how do you bring your best? It's like this is a weird analogy because they're at a totally different level, but when you see like the comedians like HBO special, they've done 500 little clubs. So I try to take every opportunity to give any advice I can to any group and use every chance I can to try to improve presentations and cut out stuff that maybe I liked but wasn't as useful, so that when I go and speak to a dream bank and there's DP is there, I know that I can make it high value by organizing it such that it flows, yet there's a practical bit of advice every few minutes, maybe at most. It should be every couple minutes, and people leave feeling like they got a lot out of it.
Yeah, well, I can, again, I'm not going to gush too much, but maybe I will. I'm going to gush some more.
Don't.
Andy Crestodina is, if you can ever see him speak, you will not be bored. You will learn something, and you'll rush right out and get his book, Content Chemistry, the Illustrated Handbook for Content Marketing. It's in its 5th edition for a reason. And I'm not just promoting this because I'm talking to him. I'm promoting this because I'll be honest with you, of all the marketing books, I'm looking around my office at all the marketing books that I've got, I could burn 75% of them. I'm not kidding.
Burn them.
Yeah, because they're useless, or they're conventional wisdom warmed over with a new frame. Yeah, big deal. This one is absolutely legit. Go ahead. What are your favorite books?
Well, we've been talking about Mark Schaefer. So Marketing Rebellion was a good one. I went on a binge of the Jay Baer books. And
Jay Baer, Baer is spelled Baer.
Yep. So you and Jay share that point about word of mouth trust, loyalty, top of mind. The talk triggers was excellent, and it's not an accident. There is such a thing as word of mouth marketing, and brands can deliberately create or facilitate word of mouth. I thought that was good. And Jay, by the way, we're in the shadows of these guys like the Mark Schaefers and the Jay Baers. They work so hard at it. And the wisdom and the delivery are amazing. But yeah, I've got a short list of people that I would never miss the chance to see them speak. Ann Handley, Schaefer, Baer, Andrew Davis. And it's a reason to get out of town. So you went all the way to San Diego. We all did. People get on planes, to go get this content. And we do so with high expectations and real cost. And when the speaker is good, it's well worth the investment.
I went to Social Media Marketing World for the first time, not this year, but the year before, and went by myself, didn't know anyone. First, it was like the first day of summer camp, and you're like, who am I going to sit with at lunch, that type of thing. And instantly I met some Australians. My pro tip is always listen for the Australian accents and get to know those people because they are fantastic. The most open people in the world, and quickly made friends with a whole bunch of them. This year, it was like Operation, and I didn't do this on purpose. I kind of stumbled into it through one of my Aussie connections. It became Operation South America, where I now have friends in Chile, Peru, and Argentina that I didn't have. So talk about getting out and meeting new people and making new connections. Such great opportunities can happen when you get out of wherever you are and extend yourself out openly to new experiences, new people.
Live events, highly recommended. Some of my tips, sit in the front row. I think you're going to meet interesting people. You got a better chance of meeting the speaker. Introduce yourself to speakers. They are hoping for a networking benefit too. Follow up and offer to collaborate with speakers because you're the press and it's a PR hit if you ask to interview them for your show. Let me ask, what is the greater benefit for going to a conference? Is it the networking and relationships, or is it the content itself?
For me, the networking and relationships, to be honest. I mean, I will admit the first year I went, I didn't realize how much content I got out of it until I turned around 6 months later, looked back and said, I'm doing every day stuff I didn't know existed 6 months ago. Mm-hmm. So there was tremendous value that first year, but this year it was really about the networking and extending that, and also making deeper acquaintances with some of the people I met the first year. I hate to end this conversation because it's so fascinating to me. But again, I just want to say that I'm talking with Andy Crestodina, Crestodina, super fantastic guy. Check him out. Orbit Media is his company, a website company in Chicago, Illinois. Totally cool guy. His content chemistry book is fantastic. He and I'll agree with you on your book recommendations. Mark Schaefer's Marketing Rebellion and Jay Baer's Talk Triggers are excellent books. I mean, they're definitely top tier books. Are there any things that you would like to actively put in front of the listeners in terms of things you'd want to promote or recommend?
There's a little book called Return on Top of Mind. Check it out.
Yeah, right. Rotoma. Exactly. Well, I want to thank you again, Andy, for being on the podcast. I really enjoyed our conversation. And I know I'm going to be seeing you soon because I'm going to be stalking you probably sometime later this year. Again, I'm DP Knudten for the Nonfiction Brand Podcast, and I'd like to invite everyone to join Nonfiction Brandversity, the free Facebook group. Just ask to join and you are in. And my name, well, I already said my name, so I'm DP
Your real
Knudten.
name. We got to the David Paul.
Yeah, exactly. I am David Paul Knudten, aka DP Knudten, and he is
Andy Crestodina from Orbit Media Studios here in Chicago.
And I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye-bye.